Have you been wondering why we develop certain fixations? Welcome to yet another episode of Why the Hell Are We Like This? And today we are going to look at some potential theories. For context, watch the previous video. The first theory is called as the signal overlap theory. In our human brain, different body parts are mapped onto different areas. The areas that respond to the stimulation of the genitals sits nearby the stimulation or the area that represents the feet. So some researchers believe that in certain people, these areas are sort of close together, which means when these people see feet or smell them or touch them, this can result in the sexual arousal pathways getting activated. In simple terms, the brain wires these areas together and they are too close compared to some other people. The second theory is the early life imprinting. According to this theory, what we experience during our childhood or adolescence can later determine how our brain thinks about desire. There are two theories within this. The first one is the conditioning model. This essentially suggests how when a neutral stimulus is repeatedly linked with something that creates arousal early on, the brain starts linking the two. So let's say that there is a piece of clothing or a situation or a sensory cue, and when it is repeatedly associated with something that creates arousal, the brain eventually realizes how that in itself can create arousal even outside the original situation. Other is the trauma model, which suggests how depending on how you were brought up and the kind of environment, it can later shape how you view desire. This is not just direct trauma. This can also mean if you have been brought up in a very restrictive household, or even if you have unresolved issues with intimacy, this can later show up as part of a fixation. Now, this is my way of thinking about it. Sometimes the object in itself does not matter. What matters more is what it represents. Sometimes the fixations can be a symbol of control, vulnerability, safety, and even comfort. Rather than the object itself, what might matter more is the meaning attached to the object that people have a fixation on. There is also something very interesting about it being taboo. When something is labeled as not okay, it carries intensity. Being able to engage in something that is perceived as dangerous, but in a safe, consensual, controlled environment, can sometimes feel grounding rather than chaotic. For people, the appeal is in the risk, it's in the structure. Clear boundaries, clear consent, clear rules makes the environment and exploration feel safe, and that safety can be appealing for many people. These are just theories. They do not explain everything, and research in this area is particularly limited because of the social stigma and shame attached to talking about it openly. At the end of the day, it's safe to assume that as long as it is between two consenting adults exploring vulnerability together, who are we to judge? I talk about psychology, philosophy, and books in this channel, so stay tuned.